Hi, my name is Félix Matos Rodríguez and I am the Chancellor of the City University of New York. People who know me call me Felo, and this is my new conversation space on CUNY TV, Café con Felo. Bienvenidos a Café con Felo. Today we're honored to welcome David Garza, a visionary leader who has dedicated his career to opening doors of opportunity for New Yorkers. As president and CEO of Henry Street Settlement, a legendary Lower East Side organization founded over 130 years ago, David has helped to transform countless lives through his work in education, job training, housing, and health services. I want to personally thank David for his partnership with CUNY, from collaborating with Government Community College on a groundbreaking cybersecurity program to providing internships and support for students across all our campuses. He truly embodies our CUNY values of equity and access. We'll explore his own remarkable journey from classroom mentor to CEO, his vision for community-based education, and how partnerships between organizations like Henry Street and CUNY can help build a fairer, stronger future for all New Yorkers. David Garza, bienvenido. Great to have you here. First conversation is always first. Are you a coffee drinker, and how do you take your coffee?
Absolutely. Just a little bit of milk, all kinds of milk. I'm a equal opportunity on the milk. Oat milk, soy milk, regular milk. Yeah, just coffee.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's how I begin my day too, with coffee from Puerto Rico. So I mean, we might have some viewers who are familiar with Henry Street, maybe others not so much. 130 years ago, social worker, nurse in the Lower East Side, deep social conviction. Can you give us a little bit of the story of the founding?
Absolutely, because it's a remarkable story, and I think one that informs our work today, right? Because it's about the importance of opening a door of opportunity, but then also the responsibility of making sure something good happens on the other side of that door. So, and for all of the students, undergrad or otherwise, that are watching, we were founded by a 26-year-old nurse. And so at the time, the Lower East Side was arguably the most densely populated neighborhood on the planet, bar none. The danger, the overcrowdedness, the unsanitary conditions, the lack of resources was traumatic and tragic. And so professionals were coming to the community to deliver help directly. And our founder, Lillian Wald, 26-year-old nurse, was teaching a class in homemaking, sanitization, so that disease wouldn't spread, would be contained, and teaching newly arrived immigrants to care for themselves, their families, their children. During a class that she was teaching, she was interrupted by a girl who they say was around 6 or 7 years old. And the child tugged on her nurse's uniform. So Lillian Wall was a nurse, and many healthcare professionals had been coming down. So this little girl tugs on her uniform and says in broken English, "Mommy, baby, blood." And Lillian Wall takes her by the hand, and the little girl leads her to where they're living in an overcrowded tenement, through the streets of the Lower East Side, over the heaps of garbage, through the unsafe conditions, and finds the child's mother laying in a pool of her own blood, left by the doctor because she couldn't pay the bill. And Lillian Wald at that moment refers to it as her baptism of fire, that she knew she was going to stick and stay on Lower East Side. This was a March morning in 1893. By 1895, she had turned that baptism of fire into a commitment, and she was very adept at getting resources to come to Lower East Side. She moved into what is now our headquarters. I just left there a half hour ago. It's 265 Henry Street. Someone bought a townhouse for her. Within a short period of time, she had many nurses living in the neighborhood with her, because they believed that proximity to their neighbors, information, awareness, dignity, respect was the way to serve.
And trust.
And trust. And I see it now as a sacred responsibility to maintain that trust that was started back then. So here we are 133 years later, that baptism of fire. But she was a prolific contributor to the field of public health, to the field of human services, to child welfare, to education, and left us a remarkable blueprint for success and for the capacity to hold on to our values in a way that was timeless. She too believed in equity and access and dignity, and so that's a lot of the challenges in society were societal issues, not personal failings. And so with that basis of dignity and trust, she established the Henry Street Settlement. We originally called the Nurses Settlement and then changes to Henry Street Settlement. And here we are 133 years later, 18 sites serving 50,000 New Yorkers a year. And again, it's a sacred responsibility and one that we're grateful to share in partnership with CUNY.
It's a beautiful story, and as I hear you talk about the importance of values, right, as something that anchors the institution, how do you balance that legacy of service, right, and the settlement sort of model with innovation, right? Because sometimes organizations, particularly ones that have been historically founded, cling to a certain way of doing things, right? And at times sort of forget about who they're serving, right? Which changes over time. How do you balance that large historical legacy with how you view innovation and what you think are the ways that you need to change the service delivery to meet the needs of the current clientele in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting combination of simultaneous approaches. Like, so I think it was Daniel Borstein, who was the Secretary of the Library of Congress, I believe, who has a quote that you can't plant cut flowers. Organizations included have to understand where their roots are. And so when you have genetic material from someone like a Lillian Wald, who believed that dignity, trust, respect, proximity, awareness were, key characteristics that could help organizations succeed, there's a certain timelessness to those and a certain responsibility to them, but there's also the necessity to be agile and to be adaptive and to be innovative. And so you can maintain your values, but change your approach. And actually that's been one of Henry Street's keys to success, is that innovation, adaptation, agility over time, and through kind of the day-to-day fight against poverty, but also in times of crisis, kind of a steel-hardened steel, right? And so Henry Street has had a lot of changes and a lot of program design decisions and responses that have all been informed by proximity to the work. And I think, to me, that's the balance of holding on to the values and the approach, but being completely open to change at all times, particularly and almost exclusively informed by those that you serve. So we say these days at Henry Street, listen, reflect, act. And that ecosystem of listening and then responding for us has proven very, very effective in terms of being able to stay true to our values, but also change as necessary.
I think it's always good when I have guests to get a little bit of their personal journey and story. And I think, one is I mean, you've been now, 15 years at the helm of Henry Street. I know that you were, you worked there before, right? So I don't want to give away too much of the story, but I think that there's a great personal journey there that I would love for you to share with the audience.
Sure. I wouldn't glorify it. I had my own little baptism of fire as well. So I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. I'm actually a fifth generation Brooklynite, family from Greenpoint, Red Hook, Park Slope area. And I take a lot of pride in that. And I come from a strictly blue collar family. My great grandfather had a push cart where he would sell produce. My grandparents worked in retail environment and garment manufacturing. My mom ultimately became a nurse, like Lillian Wald, so there was this kind of idea around helping and profession. But interestingly enough, and it will likely come up later in our conversation, I was kind of first generation in my family to go away to school. And I ended up fortunate to go to Harvard University. Interestingly enough, I went sight unseen. I hadn't visited any schools. My mom raised us in a single parent environment. She was alone. My father had left when I was 6. We had very, very limited resources. There was no resources to go on college trips. There was no resources to take an SAT prep. And
back then also, no internet that you could go in and virtually tour, whatever. It was going cold turkey.
I went as cold as a turkey could be. I think I had $300 and a bag of clothes when I arrived freshman week at Harvard. And it was a shell shock, I think, and a lot of the experience that I had there, being in probably the most resource-rich environment, you know, in academia, with a fear to ask for help, with a reluctance to access resources because of any imposter syndrome or whatever that I brought with me.
That would show that you really didn't belong. And the last thing that you wanted to do is to do that. I mean, that happened to so many students.
Because that would reinforce that I didn't belong.
Absolutely.
So I kind of scratched and clawed my way through, working full time. I worked, you know, every single year I worked 40 hours plus a week when I was at Harvard. And interestingly enough, I graduated without a lot of direction. I graduated with a degree in psychology and social relations. But I thought I had to translate my Ivy League education into financial support for my mom and the family. And so I went into a career in the private sector. I took an organizational management job. I was in retail and advertising and production. But I was very unfulfilled. And there was a time in my mid-30s where I was at kind of a crossroads and kind of like a looking for myself moment. And again, it was a time in my life where I asked my college classmate, interestingly enough, for some help. And he connected me to a volunteer project that brought me to the Lower East Side. And with complete serendipity, I ended up, so I participated in a month-long volunteer project, working on neighborhood construction, beautification, a project with a local church. And at the wrap project for that lunch, I was in deep conversation with someone about this desire for human services, this desire to help others as being much more important to me than the management experience that I acquired and the skill set professionally that I was developing. And he said, well, if you want to learn about human services, I should introduce you to the guy sitting over in the corner. And there was a gentleman sitting over in the corner, kind of eating his soup. And I said, no, I don't want to bother the guy, because again, like, I'm not the guy that you know wants to ask for help. But at the end of the meal, that gentleman was still there. And as it turns out, it was the then executive director of Henry Street Settlement. And in a moment of spontaneous generosity, when the individual that I was speaking to introduced me to Danny Cronenfeld, Danny pulled out his appointment book and said, hey, come down to Henry Street and I'll share with you what we do. And I set up an informational interview. Within 2 months from that informational interview, they needed an instructor in a job coaching class. And I thought it was a volunteer opportunity at first, and that's how I intended to approach it, to just gain the experience in a new environment outside of the private sector. They called me on a Thursday. I stopped working in the project I was working on because I was working freelance. I showed up on a Monday at Henry Street Settlement in March. That was my March morning, and I've never left. So I've been there for 24 years. I ultimately went from that volunteer position to an employment coordinator, so helping people find work. And because of my personal experience with knowing and embracing how important it is to have work for not only the economic self-sufficiency, but also for the personal, for the esteem building aspects of it, I was fiercely committed to it. And in many ways, the tougher the obstacles that the person was facing, the more I felt the compulsion to kind of lean in. So, you formerly experiencing homelessness, I'm here to help. Just got out of prison, I'm here to help. Recovering from substance abuse, I'm here to help. And it just set a path where I knew that I had found a professional home at Henry Street, and Henry Street is a remarkable place that, to this day, 24 years later, every single day, I fall more deeply in love with the organization because of that direct connection with the community and people who need us.
And knowing that you really, really go to bed at night, knowing you touch lives and for the better, and you really made a difference, and that is a gift. I wonder also, as you tell that story, how, obviously, some of your journey when you left Harvard in terms of the different jobs you did, I'm sure that some of that marketing, some of that selling has played out very well for you as you have to go out there and fundraise, which is basically selling, right, what the organization is doing and the mission to individuals who might connect with that. So I'm sure that some of that toolkit, right, came in handy. But how did it be great that you've had that job coach that you became when you left Harvard to be able to guide you in a more precise way? And that's, one of the things that we're trying to do at CUNY also with our students, to be able to not leave it to them to figure out what the path might be. Some people get it, right? They come wire in different moments, but it's something that we're trying to do, and I know it's something that's very, very dear to your heart in the settlement, and also some of the many things that you do in the city around workforce in terms of serving on boards and being part of the leadership about how we can do that better citywide.
And I know I work with Gutman, it's palpable, and it was a primary reason when we connected with the Career Innovation Hub, because that guidance and the transformative capacity of having someone to kind of serve as a Sherpa, as you get out of an environment, whether it's academic and looking for work, is critically important. And the support that's required, it proves, so significant in the lives of the students and the people that we serve.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you connected with CUNY, because you mentioned the cybersecurity certificate program that we have with Gutman, but there's other ways in which we've been working together. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that and maybe throw some ideas about things that we haven't done yet that we should be doing.
Sure. Well, we have a constellation of things that we've done together with CUNY, and I really have to credit a lot of the individuals that you have working there, because they do have the commitment to kind of meet people where they are. Like Henry Street, as a place-based organization, we understand the importance of meeting people where they are, and we understand the importance of creating on-ramps to opportunities and really making sure that access is achievable. And clearly we've had lots of opportunities to host interns that are in the many schools within the CUNY universe. But in recent years, we were able to connect with Dr. Larry Johnson, who was at Gutman, and we actually have another Gutman. It was almost like a match, like made, because the Charles and Stella Gutman Foundation supported the building of our education building. So we had kind of Gutman in common, and so it was like it was a no-brainer of a match. Yes. But then the spirit and the commitment to try and meet students where they are was palpable from day one. And when we look at our workforce development work, we kind of look at it in these kind of dyad constructs. So it's we're a generalist, but then we also specialize in specific sectors. We absolutely understand the importance of education and employment simultaneously, because the people we're working with, as many CUNY students, don't have the luxury of doing either or.
Yep.
Right, so it's a both, and it's citywide, and it's residents from the Lower East Side. And so, when we got to speaking with Dr. Johnson, and to his credit, he came to the neighborhood, and we walked the neighborhood, and we went to our Workforce Development Center, and he saw our students, and we talked about the power and the strength of this notion of place-based and meeting people where they are. And I think the other, capacity that we work in and are committed to in workforce development is high demand occupation sectors. Like, we're not training people to train, we're training people to place them in employment. And so the Career Innovation Hub shares that. It's about creating a pathway to the opportunity. Cybersecurity at the time, high demand occupation. And so how could we wrap around, bring what Gutman brings to the table on terms of the technical training, and how Henry Street on the wraparound services and the support for the students can work together. And it's been a very, very effective partnership.
Which is one of the things that working with sort of place-based, community-based organizations is particularly important for us at CUNY, because we do know the large role that wraparound services, provide and how important they are for the student success. Is not something that we inherently do well, and it's part of our DNA. So partnering with the folks that are pros at it, like you, it's a win-win scenario, and we try to do a lot more of that throughout the campuses. So I'm really happy about that partnership.
Yeah, it's without a doubt they should be inextricably linked, right? Wraparound services. As someone who is first gen knows, like, whether it's navigating the finances or navigating, choosing courses or navigating opportunities, or just navigating kind of the stress and the challenges that you're experiencing at home, the confidence, it takes a full wraparound. And, it's something we got from Lillian Wald. She believes whole person, whole family, whole neighborhood, whole city. And so it's alive and well in our approach to the work. And we have another number of other opportunities. So we have, right now we're exploring, we were looking at human service internships, because we know the nonprofit sector in New York City is a high demand occupation right now, and it's not anticipated to go anywhere but, more rich and more deep and more varied in terms of the career opportunities that it's creating. So we're right now exploring behavioral health focus because so many of even Henry Street's, so we have about 650 people that work at Henry Street. All of them need a level of behavioral health skill set. And so as we look at that, particularly in roles that are like resident assistants at our shelters and after-school professionals and activity specialists in our after-school programs at every single age and stage, any professional that has some capacity to provide expertise or approach their job with some behavioral skills training and behavioral health training is becoming increasingly important, especially as mental health issues are impacting our community more deeply at every single age level. So we're really excited about that being, kind of a part of our future. We're working very committedly to provide advisory capacity on that because, in most academic environments, students are with that environment, X hours of the day. The balance of the day, they're with us, right, where they live, and
the community.
And balancing that out has been a really important objective.
Well, kudos for that, because one of the things, in my days at Hostels in the Bronx, I used to tell people too, people get focused on cybersecurity and some of the sexy things. I said, the nonprofit in the Bronx is like the second largest employer, right? If you think as an industry. So we need to be able to have good professionals trained to go into that sector, and pay them what they deserve, which I know that you've been a leader, but also that's another workforce that I think at times get neglected as we think about tech and health and some of the other areas. But we're going to have to take a little break. When we come back, we'll get some great questions from some of the members of the community at Gutman Community College, so please stay with us.
Lillian Wald created a blueprint for action that would guide Henry Street into the future. Wald believed that an organization created to serve the public must evolve with the public. As the fabric of the Lower East Side has changed, Henry Street has changed with it.
Welcome back to Café con Felo. We're here with David Garza, President and CEO of the historic nonprofit known as the Henry Street Settlement, and we're talking about their holistic approach to opportunity building and the power of community partnership. Now, as part of the show, we take questions, and we're going to go now to members of the Gutman Community College community, and the first question is from Juan.
Gutman is the newest community college in the CUNY system, having opened its doors in 2012 to create a research-based, innovative model focused on moving students effectively towards graduation. What aspects of Gutman has inspired you to partner with the Career Innovation Hub?
It's a great question from Juan. We did a little plug for the history of Gutman and the origins, but so did you look out for Dr. Johnson? Did he seek you out? How did that connection happen?
So someone made the introduction, because I think what we share in common with Gutman is that the basis of the strength of our partnership is our commitment to be agile, our commitment to be innovative, our commitment to use facts and data to pursue opportunities for the people that we serve. And so the first opportunity was actually around certified medical assistant, because actually we did that with LaGuardia, and when it came to talk to Larry Johnson, cybersecurity had materialized on the landscape of high demand employment opportunities. Yep. And so we collaborated on how we could prepare students, particularly students who would normally have access. So I think it was all of the values manifest that we share. It was about access, it was about equity, it was about opening the door, but then making sure that something really good happened on the other side. And to do that, Henry Street provides the wraparound services, Gutman provides the technical support, we work together on job placement, we work together on providing financial support for the students. So it was the alignment and the understanding that you have to wrap around the student in all ways, academically, social, emotionally, financially, and technical support. And kind of that shared value system led to the partnership and has helped sustain it.
So we have a second question, and I think it comes from Aziz.
A lot of students are still figuring out their long-term successful careers with work, family, and other responsibilities. How can partnerships like the one with Gutman help clarify their goals and give them a better life for themselves and their families?
I mean, that's an excellent question, because I think a lot of folks, when they think about higher ed or college, they're assuming that undergrad who might be 16 and all he has to do is to be there to study, in theory, right? That is not the reality of most students in the U.S., and clearly not most of the CUNY students. Many of them are working full-time, part-time, have families. So what would you respond to Aziz?
I think it's a journey, and it's a shared journey where once a relationship with like Henry Street and Gutman is established, the goal for us is to stay with the student as long as possible. At Henry Street, once you're part of our programming, you're always a part of the programming, and we consistently will reach out to students, reach out to participants, engage families, help navigate things as they come up, both on the academic journey. So we have a college success program. 30% of our students go to CUNY schools,
yep.
Including Gutman.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's an 8-year program. So we start with 9th graders in high school, and then we work with them through whenever they're finished with their college. But then our workforce programming is, dare I say, in perpetuity. We understand that jobs can end or change, or circumstances in the family can happen. And to answer their question, we hope to be there in caring support for the students, and whether it's financial resources, information, confidence, social emotional support, we try to keep them on the path.
And I'm sure that holistic approach also means that they're not just coming back to you when they might have a difficult transition, but they're going to be back also to give back to others and to be mentors and to be drawing people, which is another power of remaining committed to people, not just doing something that's very transactional.
It creates an intergenerational trust, and there's that ecosystem of receiving and then giving back. It's the foundation of community building. We actually had a career workshop very recently in marketing with the Expanded Horizons program, and there were 6 breakout tables. The 6 breakout tables each had a professional from marketing, and each had an Expanded Horizons alum who has experienced the program and is now coming to give back to the students. So it definitely is a really important ecosystem that creates a system of care.
And but again, wonderful stories, and unfortunately, right, we don't have additional time. We might have to bring you back to talk more about these things. So thank you so much, David, not just for sharing the stories, but also for the incredible work that you do and your team at Henry Settlement. Thank you for being such great partners and to CUNY, and we look forward to many more. And I also like that your approach helps us to be better at what we do at CUNY. So I appreciate your heartfelt commitment to lifting up others and expanding opportunity across our city. And I know that you do a lot of other things in the city around workforce. So thank you for all that you do. And to you watching at home, thank you for joining us for Café con Felo. Tune in again on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. on CUNY TV for more conversations that celebrate the leaders that are making a difference in our communities. Saludos.